But I mean, you gotta go out and you're like, hey, we could do this, or just like, walk up take off 17. Well, it's been a lot of fun. Yeah. My dad thought it wasn't like the most surprising thing. But, right. You always gotta have your So I graduated second grade. It was so my first I'd like to do us.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to On-Trend Programming for Adults. I hope you're all in the right place and ready to be engaged for the next hour and 15 minutes, hopefully. So please write down any questions you have, because we are leaving a good amount of time, 10 minutes or so, for questions at the end. So we're here to help. Now, just the format of this session is as follows. There's 3 speakers. I am Jen Korolenko. I'm the Curator of Education and Public Programs for the University Art Galleries at Texas A&M. And we also have with us Ms. Jill Hoffman, who comes from Texas Tech in Lubbock. And then we have Christine Helbrick. Did I say that right? Heidebrecht. Oh, I'm sorry. Christine Heidebrecht. And she comes to us from Wichita Falls at the Kemp Center for the Arts. So you're going to get 2 art museum rundown of what programs work for us, and 1 art center program that, well, I don't know how many. So each of us are going to talk in order and tell you what worked for us, what didn't, and offer you hopefully some resources that you can take back to your institutions, whether you're at a historic home, or whether you're at an art museum, or whether you're at an oil and gas museum. You should be able to format these programs and implement them in your own spaces. That is the goal of the session. So I'll get started. Again, I'm Jen Korolenko from the Forsyth Galleries at Texas A&M. Our collection is primarily late 19th, early 20th century art. More specifically, English cameo glass and decorative glass and also American paintings. Our target demographic, or our target audience, is always the university students, obviously, and it is quite difficult to get someone who is 19 interested in grandma's china. We do not have an art department at our university. We have a visualization department, which is tech-driven, so it's mostly animation. So it's been a learning curve, a trial and error situation, learning how can we get engineering students to come and spend time in our spaces? How can we get community members to do that? How can we best serve our community, which doesn't have another art museum for 100 miles at least? So these are the following programs that have worked for us and been successful, that are both like qualitative more than quantity, because our spaces are really small. So we serve anywhere between about 12 people for like a smaller private event to about 200 people for a come and go collaborative thing, such as the first thing I'm going to talk about, which is a project that we call Pono Paints Wedgwood. We had an exhibition of Wedgwood china in our galleries, and what we did is we contacted a graffiti artist from Austin, and we had him look through the object list of the Wedgwood exhibition and do some research on Josiah Wedgwood, and come up with a design in his style that was reflective of Wedgwood. So, and that it sounds like an impossible feat, but it was accomplished. So what we did then was reach out to community members and to some of our faculty, and we asked for volunteers. The volunteers came in shifts over several hours, and they all helped to paint this giant 12 by 6 by the end of it piece. We jazzed up the marketing materials a bit. I use a program called Adobe Spark, which there is a free version. Write it down. It's amazing for graphic design. If you do not have an in-house graphic designer, it is worth it. If you even want to pay for it, it's only $10 a month. So that is very, very workable, and you can get really, really great results and really modernize your stuff. That's the challenge of my museum, is to make modern and interesting this stuff that is very niche and not necessarily the interest of our audience. So there's our great marketing shot for it. She happened to be showing her little A&M t-shirt while she was down there painting. And then we have the artist here who just free-handed the entire thing. We were out in an open area on campus, and we did this entire 12-foot painting in the span of 6 hours during the day, and we had shifts of students coming through every 45 minutes or so, and some were coming back even though, because they didn't realize they were actually going to be painting. And I was like, why did I tell you to wear crappy clothes? But it was still a really great experience for them, because they thought it was so cool that they were working with a real artist. And then they were also then interested in the Wedgwood exhibition, like what inspired this image. The next couple of things that really, really worked for us were the idea of a date night, but not a traditional date night, not necessarily like boyfriend, girlfriend, partner situation. It could be your best friend, it could be your mom. I had somebody bring like their teenage kids for them. And here again, the one on the left here is again designed by Adobe Spark. The advertisement for it is when we had an Alphonse Mucha exhibition up in the galleries. The format of a date night is as follows. I try to come up with a project where the students can do it hopefully standing up, and they're doing something in stages. And in between the things drying or things that take a little bit of time, rather than people just kind of milling around, we do an unconventional tour of the exhibition as well, and then return back to the project to finish everything up. So sort of breaking things up throughout, if you're going to do a structured event like that, I find is really a bit more interesting to like the 18 to 25 demographic, because we're constantly being bombarded with imagery, right? We're looking at screens all the time. So we're ready to move to the next thing in about 15 or 20 minutes, rather than sitting in a static position and listening to a lecture like this. I'm so sorry. So sorry. But you get the gist. We also would do themed date nights. Like for instance, we did Valentines Day this year, which was really, really popular. Here are just some images of people working. They did a mixed media art project, really simple, requires no art skills whatsoever. If you can cut something out and glue it to something else, you're good. Which again, eliminates the being intimidated part of participating in this type of event. And then again, they're all standing while they do it, so it's a very active thing. There's another one that we did. And then for the Valentine's Day one, it was a little bit different insofar as we did unconventional conversation hearts, and we fed them a lot of candy. We can't have alcohol at our events. There's a lot of red tape involved with that. So what we do is we feed people gross amounts of sugar, and that seems to do the trick just as well. In my experience anyway, like I'm sure some people go to happy hour after, but it has worked in that way, and I can always do things for really on the cheap and get lollipops and things like that, and that surprisingly enough is a good enough incentive, that and having this thing they can take home when they're done. So a little bit on the unconventional side, I know that the title says we're working with specifically adult programming, and the way that I've started to approach my family programming is trying to first grab the attention of the parents. Obviously, they're the ones who get their kids there, but it's a phone-free zone when we have drop-in workshops with parents, and also a Storytime program, which we'll talk about in a second. And so the parents and the adults actually have to sit down at the tables with the children and create their own thing while they're in the spaces. And then we usually have activities in the galleries that they can do as well. We use a typewriter and a record collection as part of our interpretive educational aspects within our exhibitions. So there's, once again, room for people to jump around and do different things. And it's very loosely structured. Like I'll put an explanation of what you're supposed to do on papers, on the tables, leave out the supplies, and kind of step back. Because what people want is they want an experience, but they don't want anybody to hover over them. They don't necessarily want a guide all the time. And that is something that's truly generational, I think. Because we're shifting to the point where millennials are, and elder millennials, such as myself, are the largest part of our country at this point. So we really have to sort of adjust our idea of programming, adjust our idea of what we can control in our spaces and what we can't. And I know a lot of you will be saying, my curator will never let me do that in your space. Well, it was like that when I first started my job too, but once you see that people come, have a great experience, and word of mouth starts happening, you get return visitors, you get people spending way more time in your spaces than they normally would, and then they're bringing their friends back and making it a thing. Like they look forward to a date night every month or the Storytime program. So here are the kids working at Storytime. And then here's everyone sitting on the floor. There's only one bad parent there, we can see, with her cell phone, using it as a scrolling opportunity, which you'll get that in any of the situations. And the way our story times are structured are a little bit different. They're geared towards 3 to 5-year-olds, but people bring, I don't know, babies. So we adjust. But they started to get so popular that I started recording the stories ahead of time. So I just got a really cheap podcast microphone and recorded myself reading the stories aloud and made a PowerPoint. And when the kids come to read the story, it's pumped through the speakers in the gallery and it's projected on our screen, which we would normally use for lectures and things like that. And the kids love it. And the parents enjoy it as well. A lot of the times we have to do the story 2 or 3 times because they're like, again. And then we'll also do an art project after the fact. And I on purpose make it more difficult than the age demographic can do, so their parents will have to help them. Because if they don't, they're gonna hear it. Because the kids aren't gonna be able to do it without the assistance of the adult in the room. So those have been really successful in getting parents of this particular age into our spaces. And back to the college students, I love a collaborative project. This is something that we started several years ago. I don't know if any of you are Aggies in the room, but if you do something more than, twice, I'm told that it's then a tradition. So now this is a tradition for the art gallery, which we call the Aggie Art Project. And just a humble brag, that's the whole mural project from the beginning that was displayed. So basically we set up a giant tarp in the galleries and we put out huge canvases, and then I clean out my supply closet, because we all have little foam bits we don't know what to do with, right? And other bits and baubles that you know you should throw away, but you can't because you're a hoarder. You're an educator hoarder, like I am. So I use the Aggie Art Project every single year as an opportunity to get rid of that stuff, but also to have students who are new to our spaces feel more comfortable in them. And again, this is something with very little supervision. This was last year where they used tissue paper and bits of fabric and things, and just assembled their work into the shape of like some A&M themed things. Again, it doesn't require any artistic skill, but we really packed people in. For a small space that can only handle, in my classroom, I can only handle about 25 people at once. Doing a day-long event like this, I get about 250. So that's usually something that's not attainable. So having a day-long events are a really great idea too. There's no pressure for anybody to be there at a specific time. And there's also nobody who's necessarily leading it. Like there'll be someone up here, hopefully in the room, who's there to answer questions and things of that nature, but it's mostly self-guided. And there's the final project. These are the years of the Aggie Art Project that we've been doing. We've used fabric, we've used tissue paper, we've used plastic dinosaurs. There's all different kinds of things. Once again, very economical because the supplies are mostly free. I'm only buying canvases for this kind of thing. And the last kind of program that I wanted to talk about is a kind of an unusual partnership with a for-profit gallery in Bryan College Station. Once again, the arts community is really, really small there. We're a football town. We're the town that A&M exists in. So to get the attention of our community, we kind of need to do things a little bit out of the box. So we partnered with the Seed Gallery, which is a gallery in downtown Bryan that supports STEM and STEAM art projects primarily, and they try to incorporate science and math as much as possible in their exhibitions. And they had this idea to do what they called a Seed After Dark program, where essentially someone from the museum staff, me, there's a department of one. There's a few of you. I'm sorry, I feel your pain. I would go to this gallery out of it, and we'd do really basic introductions to art. So this one here, that what makes it art, it was about contemporary art and performance art and things like that. So tackling a subject that people are not necessarily comfortable with or don't know a ton about, but doing it in a really fun way. Insofar as this was BYOB, because we were not at my museum, and there was snacks and things like that, but also incorporate games during the event. For instance, these sheets of just different artworks that have a couple of lines on them. So all you would need are printouts and plastic sleeves and some dry erase markers, and then a list of artists. I tried to pick well-known artists that are Googleable, because I am encouraging people to use their phones during this specific thing. So all these photos would be laid out around the perimeter of the room. Each of the participants would pick a name out of it, and then they would be required to Google that last name, find the work of art that is shown, and I on purpose picked things that were not the first result. Okay. Not the first result. And then what they had to do was Google it and find out about the artist. I got it. Thank you. Thank you. And they had to come up with 2 truths and a lie about the specific artist. So that's doable with historic figures. That's doable with artists. Any person that you have involved with your institution and is Googleable in that way. And also a really good idea that we do sometimes when we're feeling a little sassy is I have people come up with like dating profiles for the artists before they know anything about them. So to be like, you know, like pina coladas and getting caught in the rain, that kind of stuff. They'll be like Vincent Van Gogh, 35. And it's really, really, really something that people get a kick out of. And then it kind of opens them up then to learn the actual information and the more traditional stuff that we would think that we would give to people during tours and things of that nature. So that's been really, really popular. We also did one called Art History for People in a Hurry, and this was a 2-hour lecture that covered cave paintings to 21st century art. Sounds impossible. Yeah, it sounds impossible, but it was doable. We got a little bit of everything, and to contextualize a lot of the stuff with this specific format, we could then get music from the specific time periods and have people act things out. Once we got to Dada art, we had everyone pick random words out of a hat and create a Dada work, like an on-the-spot work of art, that kind of thing. Again, it's the combination of bringing alcohol and also being able to interact with people in kind of an unconventional way. You're not necessarily in a museum space, and there's less of the intimidation factor when it comes to these types of programs, I found. That's what I have, so I'm gonna pass the mic over to Christine, who is going to talk about programming at the Kemp Center for the Arts. And you'll just excuse me while I switch to PowerPoint here. I got it. Okay, young lady.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's lovely to see such a full room. Being after lunch, I wasn't quite positive what to expect. My name is Christine Heidebrecht, like she mentioned. I am the Education Coordinator for the Arts Council Wichita Falls Area, Inc. This is a group that has been together for 25 years, and in complete contrast, our community has a lot of art happening in it. There has been an art museum in town for, I think, over 50 years. We have an art association that's been in town for 70 years. We have 2 theaters. We have a symphony. We have a community orchestra. We have ballet. We have youth ballet. And so there is a lot of different arts opportunities in Wichita Falls, and we're just one of them. And so we're constantly trying to figure out how to work with all of the other groups while at the same time finding our way and making our niche. What we have discovered is we fit best in the area where we're not necessarily talking about famous works of art, and we're not necessarily working directly only with artists. We're the group that kind of focuses in on the ones who, in 3rd grade, were told by their choir directors, you can't sing, and you stop singing. Or we're told by our art teacher somewhere along the line, well, that's nice, but maybe you should go try something else. And we get numbers of stories of folks that have had that experience where well-intentioned teachers stop the creative process way too early in the educational time frame. So the things that I am going to talk about are some of the things that we have created in regards to trying to reignite people's creativity. But I have recently learned that my working style is one where I need context, and so I'm going to give you guys a little bit of context. I hope you don't mind. So this is our mission, is nurture and strengthen the artistic, cultural, and educational quality of the community and surrounding areas. Wichita Falls is 100,000 people, but in my position, I also work in 11 different counties. And so one of the programs that I work with is all about the Region 9 school system, and so you'll hear more about that later, but 11 counties worth. Formed in 1994 as the brainchild of a Leadership Wichita Falls class. How many of you have a leadership class in your communities? This has been really useful to us, constantly staying in touch with them and making sure that we're somewhere on their schedule for each upcoming class has really helped people understand who we are. We have 2 historic buildings. For a very long time, we only had the one, and that's why we were known most often as Kemp Center for the Arts. We actually were originally formed under the name Arts Council Wichita Falls Area, Inc., but when we took over the old Kemp Library to let people know how to find us, you just go to the Kemp Library or the Kemp Center for the Arts. And so for a good 20 years, that's how people knew us. Well, then we also got the Women's Forum, and so we refer to that now as the Forum. And we tried a variety of different things, and we realized we need to go back to our original name and then specify which building. Because we were having caterers showing up at the wrong spot, and it was all kinds of craziness. We offer a meeting space for over 50 member organizations, and this might be something that can work for some of you as well. There are a lot of small groups in towns that have no formal meeting place. They have no formal post office box, and they're constantly changing who's leading, and so they're either changing their postal address to the new leader every year, or have a post office box and are paying for that. And what we offer is for $50 a year, we're your post office, we're your meeting place. We'll have all of the technology set up for you, those kinds of things. It's things that we already have in place, and it gets our building used and gets people coming in as well. Some of our major programming, Carnival is it's flat out fundraising, it's just a big party. Arts Alive Home and Garden Festival, Cowboy True actually is one of the arts events that we have that celebrates the cowboy artist. And so beyond the painting, beyond the drawing, we're talking metalsmithing, leatherworking. We even had one gentleman that came in and had painted on top of bullets, which I would never have thought of doing, but it was fascinating. Sculpture garden. We have a sculpture garden outside of our building that has anywhere between 10 and 15 sculpture pieces brought in. Sounds of Speedway as one of our performing ones. Youth Artseum and Mystery Art Fests are the ones that I really wanted to talk to you today about, though. So, some of our achievements. We have 28 unique gallery exhibits. The distance learning classroom, we have over 1,000 girls, students joining us. This is the Region 9 connection that I mentioned. It's a real-time, it's basically Skyping an art instructor into a classroom. This is only made possible because we have a very generous grant that supports it. And so I know that that's going to be harder for you to do. But if you are interested in distance learning, talk with me afterward. I'd love to tell you about it. Art in Transition is one that we've just recently begun. We are one of 2 known programs in Texas where art lessons are taken into the county jail for prisoners. The concept not being that once they get out of jail, they're going to become an artist and be able to sustain themselves on an artist's salary, because, there's plenty of jokes there. Unfortunately, it's more about what is learned in the study of art. One of the best parts about art lessons as a child is the grit that it gives you. So often, you start off with an end project in mind, and you want to get to that end project. And maybe the first attempt doesn't get you there. So you back up and you think about it and try again. And you start developing those critical thinking skills and trying to find that pathway that's going to get you to the goal that you have in mind. That is more what we're trying to share with the folks in the county jail. It's just that constant, believe in yourself. We are going to get there together. Don't try and skip over and jump to the end. We can help you be proud of the steps that you take to get to where you are. Memories in the Making. This isn't a project of ours. It's one that we collaborate with the Alzheimer's Association, but it has also been a very effective one. And if you have any connections with the Alzheimer's Association in your communities, find out about it. If you have any questions, once again, I can tell you about that. All right, the 2 programs that I specifically wanted to talk about. Mystery Art is the first one. It is our exhibit and auction, and it's done by local and regional artists. We put a call to artists out and say, would you submit an original piece of work? It has to be 8 by 10, and if you do a sculpture or a 3D piece, it needs to be 8 by 10 by 10, so that our gallery can handle as many of them as possible. These pieces are donated to us, and so once they are handed in, they are our property. However, the whole point of this is to celebrate that artist. We ask them not to sign the front of the art, and that's what makes the mystery. So we have folks in our community who are very well-known artists who are commanding, or who could command, a couple of $1,000s for an 8 by 10. who are then submitting this piece to us without their name on it, and as people come through the gallery, it takes on its own life. Granted, a lot of folks have a style that you can kind of walk in and go, oh, I know who did that one. But this is also a fun time for that known artist to try something completely different. And so if they want to see something different in themselves or a different medium, this is a great time. This is also fantastic for the novice artist, because you don't have to risk being in a smaller community, having your name on something, and having somebody come in and say, you think you're an artist? You can sit there, you can put the piece on the wall and get feedback without people knowing that they're talking to the artist. You can kind of see how people are responding to it. It's a learning cycle all the way through, because as you step into that room, nobody knows you from any of the other artwork on that wall. You could have done any of those pieces. You are celebrated throughout. It's a very uplifting opportunity. On the very first day that we open the exhibit, we have 3 different groups come in and give awards. And so I would say probably 40 pieces end up with some kind of acknowledgement. One that the Arts Council itself gives out is called the Featured Artist Award. And what that means is that artist has been chosen to be our artist for the upcoming Home and Garden Festival, which is one of the reasons why I mentioned that earlier. What that means is on all of the tickets, on all of our t-shirts, on every poster that we put up for Home and Garden that next time around, it is that artist's work. They then get to have a booth at that art festival, and they get to talk with over 10,000 to 13,000 people that come through about their art. And so that's one of the reasons why artists are willing to give this a try, is because it can be explosive in getting your name out there. We display it for 3 to 4 weeks. It is usually in the month of October. Sometimes it bleeds over into like the last week of September, possibly the first week of November, but usually we try and end it by that last Saturday in October. That last night, we have a big auction. And so this is a silent auction, and friends and family come in. They can all put bids on anything that they're interested in. And then anything that gets over 125 bid twice goes to a live auction. So if we know that there are 2 people out there willing to do 125 on that piece, we take it live. And one of the most exciting things that we've discovered with this is the artist who didn't necessarily believe in themselves, finding out that the community believed in them. One woman in particular had a relationship where the loved one in her life was basically telling her, well, it's nice that you do that, but it's not going to pay the bills. Well, he was wrong. Let's just say it that way. He was wrong. She got in there, she won the featured artist, she got out in front of the community, everybody realized what she could do, and that is her full-time job now. She is in demand, she has a waiting list, she also has a new someone in her life. So just saying, be careful when you tell somebody they can't do things. Moving on. So multiple learning opportunities. It's a very diverse group. We all have an adult and youth section. And there are times when the youth will submit something that you would swear has to go in that adult section. In fact, one of the pieces that we had last year was of a ladybug, and I would have told you that somebody who had graduated college in an art degree had done the ladybug. 16 years old, absolutely gorgeous, wonderful piece. So we have a wide range, and each artist is uplifted throughout the whole process. Every Thursday through that month, we have an event at the Arts Council where we have food and beverages, and we're fortunate enough that we can offer alcohol. So we have a lot of people come in and just kind of sit and enjoy, and they'll talk about the pieces, and you'll hear so many people just discuss what they're seeing. And they might have started catching on, oh, that's a piece, I saw something by this person last year, I'm sure this has to be that person, and look at how they've developed, look at what they're trying now. And you just get to kind of enjoy that communal education of ourselves. So often we don't necessarily feel informed enough to make commentary on visual art. My background is actually theater, and so when I walked into this career, I thought, okay, I can't say one word, I have no reason to say. And then I realized that, you know, everybody is going to find something different in a piece. What What we need to do is start learning how to really look at it and dive into it, and find the words to explain why. You know, if you don't like it, that's okay, but be able to stop and find those words. That was a lot of words on that one. So by the numbers, last year we had 159 artists donate 260 pieces. You can donate up to 2 pieces, and that is partly so that a well-known artist really knows that, well, what I'm doing here is I'm going to donate a piece and it's going to help raise funds to cover this whole event. They can do a piece in their traditional style, and then if they want to try something new, they can do a piece in a different style. So 8 by 10 pieces. The 7 evenings, the very first evening, once it's hung, we invite everybody, the community, all of the artists to come in and just kind of celebrate that opening. And then once everything is finished, we actually ask everybody back for a artwork signing party. So the person who purchased your piece gets to meet their artist, and everybody can then once again stop and talk about, well, what is it that you really saw in this? Why did it speak to you? Is it going to go into your kid's room, or just a wide variety of different things. There are 18 different awards that are given from the Arts Council, and then there are the 2 other groups that also give awards. Usually the other groups are honorable mentions, and that is also a very uplifting thing for artists to see. Home and Garden Featured Artist. In the month of October, we usually have about 12 to 1,500 people come through and experience this. If you break that down, so that would be, about 6 people per artist coming through, or per piece, we'll put it that way. And that holds about true. You know, grandmas, grandpas, aunts, uncles, your best friend. You say that you submitted a piece, come try and figure out which one it is. And so you encourage the entire